In today's show, Danny Marang from Jacked Ramseys and 1080 The Fan is back on the program, and we talk about Donovan Clingan and the Blazers' young wing core. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen. It's 3 days a week in August and the first couple weeks of September. In today's program, Danny Marang is back on the show. You heard him yesterday, and he's back today. We're talking Donovan Clingan, the Blazers' young wings. Let's get into it. Joining me now, you remember him from yesterday's program. It's Danny Marang from 1080 The Fan and Jacked Ramseys. Danny, on yesterday's program, we talked sort of about the direction of the franchise and urgency and patience, but I want to talk quickly to begin today's show about the future, and then we'll kind of touch back on some of the vets. Mm-hmm. You saw Donovan Clingan up close and personal in Las Vegas, and other than him being gigantic, what are the early things that stand out about him? Like, what's your sort of like 30-second scout when you watch Clingan play?
Feel, just intrinsic feel. So many big men at Summer League. You've been down there. It's a complete ass show. Like, it's the bigs. Zach Collins is, if Nick Batum didn't exist, was the worst big I've ever seen at Summer League, and it was he was atrocious. It was so bad.
Zach Collins might have killed the Oregonians' travel budget, because I went down there. I was like, I'm gonna do a big feature on Zach. Like I've connected with his family. I'm gonna do like a whole thing, and he was terrible, and he got hurt, and they were like, I don't think we need to go to Summer League anymore.
Cut that out. Yeah.
They were like, hey, Mike, thanks for your efforts, but I don't think we need to go. I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right.
But like, Zach's not the only one. Big,
right? It's a tough place.
It's bad, and
tough place for non-dribblers.
Yes, and talking to Donovan after game one, I don't know if you've seen the video from his post-game press conference. He beat himself up, but I mean, even before the cameras got up, man, he just whipping himself as he's walking over. You can see him mumbling to him. Like, he was so disappointed with how he played, and what he finished with, like 13 rebounds and 5 blocks or something like that. But he gave up some offensive boards, and he was so frustrated. And I asked him, hey, you've been pretty hard on yourself. Is there anything you were excited with tonight? And he said something along the lines of, no, I'm really hard on myself. There's nothing I liked about tonight. And I was like, oh, this guy's a lunatic, like, in the best possible way. Now, sometimes you have to be careful with that stuff as far as like letting it get to you. And I heard Chris Murray is a guy who I think his biggest demon he has to conquer is he lets it get to him too much. But after the second game, I'm talking to him post game. I go, hey man, same question. He's like, all right, I was a little bit better. I thought my passing was pretty good, and you could just see like how much more full of life he was. And I don't think he cared about the stats. I think he cared about his ethereal play. He's more Hooper brain than anything else. And more importantly, the win. Like, that's what he hates, losing more than he likes winning.
Well,
and
buddy.
he's I may or may not have pulled him aside and been like, hey, I know you've won 4 straight titles, but this is going to be tough on you, young man. And he just kind of looked at me, and I'm like,
It's one of the unique challenges of being a high draft pick, is that typically you go play for a bad team, and those the NBA is relentless if you win.
And it eats you
even more relentless if you lose. It comes every day, and boy, can it gets it. I mean, yeah, it's like, if you've ever been in an NBA locker room, you could feel game 65 a lot more than you could feel game 15. It is
one way or the other, man. It starts kind of emanating up. The thing about Clingan, though, beyond his feel and obviously the defense, is he does possess a very high level basketball IQ. Yeah. But like the spatial awareness, it sounds such a corny thing to say. It's like, oh, his spatial awareness is great. No, it is. Like, he understands how well somebody's going to come open. Like, if somebody's really, in lock and trail on somebody off a pick, he knows, okay, that guy can shoot that gap, or, hey, I can't get that in there, or his ability to adjust the player speed. Ricky Council IV for the 76ers in that summer league in game 2. If you've never seen Ricky Council, for listeners, if you've ever seen Ricky Council IV play basketball, think about like your 2K character taking all the 3-point shooting away and ramping the driving dunk all the way up.
He had some crazy dunks in the regular season against Portland, to the point where I had to Google who he was.
Bro, he is a menace, and he just wants to get downhill and put you on a poster. He's a bit of a throwback. And Clingan had to kind of adjust to his athleticism because Ricky's a big dude. He's probably about 6'4", 215. Like, he's a built kid with probably a 40-plus inch vertical. And you could see Council wanted to test him over and over and over and over again. I think Donovan blocked him twice and fouled Council once, but you could tell every time Council tried something a little bit different, Donovan adjusted. It wasn't just his bag isn't, look me, I'm big. You know, it was, right. I can stunt at you and show a little bit and then recover and get straight up and down. Or I can really show at you, cut off the lane, get vertical. Or I'm just going to meet you from the weak side, challenge you at the rim and see what happens. Like, those are very, very, very small things. I don't think show up unless you're sitting there like, okay, this is what I'm looking at with a guy. But his spatial awareness, both as a passer and as a defender, much more advanced for a young big than I think you typically see.
Yeah, his fast brain, slow feet, and that really helps. Like, it's like he might fast not hands. Ever. Yeah, he might not ever get to the sort of like guard dudes on the perimeter type of defender that everyone wishes that, you know, every big guy, maybe he can guard in space. I just think he's going to be a drop big. But like, the most important thing you could do is defend the rim, and he makes up for some of his physical limitations laterally just with like, he reads the game fast. That was always stood out to me, stood out to me in college watching him. It's the NCAA is different though, because you could stand in the paint. You don't have to. Yeah, you could stand in the paint, and like, with all due respect to the college game, there's definitely 2 dudes on the court who can't shoot, and so you can just you could be like, well, I'm definitely not worried about them. So it's like your decision making is a little bit different, because there's like,
he was also 2.9ing like a monster.
Yeah, he was really good at it. He was really good at it. In that,
I'm sitting there watching Wizards
game. In that Wizards game, I mentioned this on the program, but he was, whoever the Wizards summer league coach was, losing his mind. Like, he's not getting out of the paint. He was not getting out of the paint. He hasn't cleared the whole position. And I was like, there's no greater compliment you can have as a big than someone whining that you're in the paint. That means that they can't figure out what to do if you're in the
scouting report.
Time.
It's basically, it says, if he's in the paint, don't try. Like, it's
or it's like, I've
already there.
Yeah, I've watched my guys like try and fail this a million times. The way we're going to do it is we're going to try to manipulate him out of the lane. And Clingan said,
and
no, like, here's what I do best. I'm going to be here. And I thought that was a really good sign. I am a little worried about what he does on offense. He could definitely pass, but what do you think about his offense? But first, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Listen, it's summertime. We're deep into August, which means baseball season is rolling along. And, you know, maybe you're a football person. That's coming back soon. College football and the NFL. But for now, before those things get started, FanDuel is making it fun to be someone who wagers on sports. They're hooking up all customers, that's new customers and returning customers, with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. It's FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I am a little worried about what he does on offense. He could definitely pass, but what do you think about his offense? Because I think I'll bravely say it, I think it was kind of bad on offense in summer league. I think it was bad.
My take on him in the draft profile was that he was better defensively than I anticipated even. Like, I thought he was going to be good. And offensively, he was even worse than I thought. And I did not grade him out very good offensively. I have talked to I think every member of the front office and the coaching staff about him. And the question I asked pretty much everyone was, how do you handle him in scoot and pick and rolls? Like, right. And Furber's like, well, if Clingan can hit threes, defenses will not care. This entire year, If one opposing defense cares 1 second about Donovan Clingan shooting threes, they screwed up. Because there needs to be so much more film, so many more attempts before I don't care if Donovan Clingan starts 6 of 6 from the field from 3. You should not be going out there to cover him. It's just, there's 82 games. Play the odds that if he takes 6 more, he's going to miss them all. Like, it's just, if that's the night, then that's the night, man. Sometimes you get you get the 10-day contract guy who's going to kill you. Shout out Yogi Ferrell going for 30.
Ferrell,
like
the stimulus package game where the Blazers made him like $4 million.
Congratulations on getting that man a fully guaranteed NBA deal because he went for 30 in like 28 minutes. But his offense, it's behind. Like I don't. If I am a defense, I am playing at the restricted line in a Scoot Henderson, Donovan Clingan pick and roll. Now, here's the thing. Clingan sets screens. Like day one, he's the best screener that they have on the team right now.
Yep.
Right now, he sets great screens. He knows how to stick his butt out and get that extra little drag that makes the defender go around one more step. Subtle little thing like that, which might be enough to free Scoot up. It might be enough. Now, I don't think so, and it's probably going to take a little bit more. They're going to have to screen, rescreen, and this is such a hyper-specific thing. They're such a poor screening team that they couldn't even run like Spain pick and roll sets because they just couldn't get anything out of them. They abandoned their double drag, their 77 series last year because they couldn't screen. Like, that's the reason they stopped running it, because they'd run double drag and nothing would come out of it because they don't have screeners on. Like, think about that. Like, it's not everyone they have that sets a screen wants to slip. And it's like, okay, guys, not everyone can slip. Somebody's got to put a body on somebody. And Clingan likes screening. I think that'll be a huge thing. But what I think I want to see to make this a little bit easier on them is something Damon Nurk did a ton of. And that's that empty corner pick and roll.
Right.
Let them play on one side of the floor. Like, everyone's like, well, you want to make a defense make decisions. Well, you also want the decision making to be simplified for your two young players. So if you're going to run those two in pick and roll, empty out a side, let them run with Clingan's back to the baseline. And so that when that comes through, he can either flip and rescreen and then dive, or Scoot's got a clear lane to the rim where he can work on that floater, work on that layup, or get somebody in a little bit of trouble and find something on the backside of the play because you're going to have somebody crashing down from the wing on the tag. Like, that's, I want to say it was 2017. The Blazers with Terry, they ran a ton of empty corner with Damon Nurk, and it was one of the highest value points per possession plays that they had on the season. I want to say it was like a 1.25 or something. Like, it was an egregious points per possession rate.
Well, I am not 100% sure Scoot Henderson's going to operate a pick and roll at that level, but
no, I mean, either.
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, the opportunities it creates, like, everybody wants to run everything in the middle of the floor balance, space, blah, blah, blah. Simplify. What does Scoot do well? Put pressure with his shoulders getting downhill. What does Clingan do well? Screen. And if you get a switch, you get something different out of that look, and you allow Clingan to now operate on one side of the floor as a passer. Now you can maybe flip Scoot in as a cutter. Now you've got Shayton on one side. You've got Ant if he's out there on the backside. Like, there's just Denny operating as a cutter. Like, there's just more I think you can do as opposed to going straight up into actions. And I'm really interested to see kind of what Bjorkgren comes up with, because he's the guy. They hired people who have they hired people with some chops as creative offensive minds, and we'll kind of see what that looks like. I think that's interesting. I want to ask you about a couple other young guys. Join us in that third segment, and that's what we will do. Still a pass first point guard, still Mike Richmond, still chatting here with Danny Marang. 1080 the Fan and Jacked Ramseys. Danny, we talked a bunch about Clingan earlier, but there's some other young guys I'm curious about. The Blazers have kind of like a glut of young wings who don't quite have it, but have stuff that you can see. Obviously, I think on night one, Tumani's obviously going to play because he's just like more impactful. He's probably your seventh man.
Yeah, and because of the way the roster works, Matisse Thybulle is probably going to be ahead in the pecking order of Jabari Walker and Chris Murray. So, like, those two dudes probably won't play on night one if everyone's healthy. I think is how this is going to work. But among those guys, Toumani and Jabari and Chris, who do you think has the most, like, I think Toumani's ahead of them, but like, who's the closest to like sticking, right? Who's the closest to sort of like being an NBA dude, and why?
I'm probably going to go against the grain here and say Chris. Because
interesting. Why?
Because it's literally just shooting. Because if he does it, and I have talked to every single one of the players, and they all say he shoots it in practice. It's all in his head. It's all in his head. Like, he puts the numbers, you know about the NOAA tracking system there. Like, the practice system that they have, it tracks everyone's shots. It tracks all their trajectories, their release angles, all that kind of thing. Chris has the most consistent shot in the system. So it's clearly a translation from practice to game, which is a real problem, because that's, to be honest, that's the separator. Plenty of guys are good at practice, but you've got to make that transition. If he can figure that out, he's 6'8". He can put the ball down on the floor. He can pass. He can defend multiple positions. Like, I think he's a more functional player. I love Jabari, and he's a great rebounder for his size, but I think he presents kind of the same questions that Trendon did. Like, Trendon's ability as a playmaker is unique and valuable, but you have to have a very, very, very specific roster.
Yeah, like what position does he play?
Yeah,
who does he guard on the other end? Yeah.
And like Jabari, if Jabari's 6'10", we're not asking this question.
Right. But he's like 6'7" or something
and a half. Like that? Yeah. It's like, if he's 6'10", like he's a 5. And he's a pretty mobile 5 who competes really hard on the glass, is switchable defensively, and makes, smart decisions, plays hard. You're like, oh, that guy's he's his dad.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's Samaki Walker. Like, okay, cool. We can work with that. And I think it's Jabari's had 2 years, and I've talked to him a ton. I've discussed this on the radio, and I think I might have did a podcast about this last year. Jabari completely broke down his jumper and rebuilt it, and he is having the same issues mentally. He is not.
Yeah, he shot worse in year 2 than he did in year 1 with like a new jumper. Yeah.
Yes, and that, I don't see that as a red flag as much as maybe it's just not going to work, and because it's not for a lack of effort. The kid is out there busting it, and I look at the tools, and as much as I love both those guys, I think Chris, by virtue of just being able to put ball down on floor and attacking closeouts while being multi-positional defensively, gives him just that much more room, even if I think he's still a year older than Jabari.
He is, yeah.
So, but like, it's not to say Jabari can't grow. And I think both have a career in the NBA as kind of like journeymen at this point.
Sure.
But if Chris shoots 35% from 3, like, he's a rotational level forward on most teams in the league. 6'8", mildly toolsy. His game isn't going to really devolve because he doesn't rely on burst athleticism.
Yeah, he's not. I would say my concern with him is the athleticism. I think the lack of burst right around the rim. I think
that does bite him.
In addition to the not being a great shooter, just straight up bad shooter. Yeah. There's been some times he gets all the way to the rim. He just doesn't have that final.
You think he's going to load up and dunk, and it's like, Chris.
Yeah, and he's like, and he's like short rimming a layup because he just didn't have that burst. I am a little concerned, probably more than not more than the shooting, because the shooting's the obvious thing. Like, I agree, if he could shoot, he would be a different player.
I think the shooting fixes a lot of the lack of athleticism, because then all of a sudden guys are closing out on him.
Yeah, it's a different. He only shot. Yeah, he only shot open threes last year because they just stopped guarding him. And if he shoots threes with a defender coming, it changes. It does.
Hell, let's just say he just turns into like a 39% corner 3-point shooter, and all he does is take and make the open ones in the corners. Like, that alone makes him a functional player in the NBA.
Obviously, like, if you make open threes, you get less open threes. That's kind of that's the math.
But also those corner ones are the ones that come open, because
corner threes are open. They're catch and shoot. They're easier for a reason. Most teams play the same way in terms of principles on defense, and that weak side opposite is
pass 3. Anything past 3 passes, the corner is going to come.
Yeah, that's typically that opposite side corner is an open shot, and if you don't have a super slow release, then you're going to get clean looks at it. Yeah. So I think if he just made the open ones, I think I've pitched this in the past on the show. It's like, what if it's like, who cares about anything else? What if he just made a singular skill? If he just shot, 40% on butt naked threes, on like the nobody in the picture type of 3-pointers, he's already a much improved player just on that alone. Because I think he will get that, and that's his role. Like, and is to be a guy who can space, and shooting is going to help everything. One of the big problems with the Blazers, and one of the challenges I think for Scoot, with among all of his personal skill issues, is that his teammates didn't compliment him.
No,
and it's like,
nobody can shoot. The spacing all of a sudden devolves, and it's like, and that's what, honestly, that beyond the Ant's better, that's the reason why I want Ant starting. That's why I want to see what Shaedon can do with better spacing so he can grow his game. Let's see how Denny looks effectively as a passer when he's got a guy two guys in Ant and Shaedon who can be plus shooters, and he's operating on the weak side.
And Ant is he's probably a little more comfortable with the ball in his hands. He's a totally capable off-ball guy, whereas Scoot is a comfortable with the ball in his hands, but a not a capable off-ball guy. So like, what Denny's ability to toggle on ball off ball with Ant would be really complimentary, whereas it's like with Scoot, Denny's ability to be on the ball would actually not be as valuable, right? No. It just wouldn't be like, it wouldn't be as valuable for Denny because he'd have a dude off the ball who can't shoot. So
now all of a sudden the floor gets shrunk down and they're playing 4 and 5, and it's like, okay now.
Yeah. I'm curious about this. Do you think there's a world in which they try to move Matisse Thybulle because like everyone was worried about Jeremy Grant, whatever. No. I think it's the bench minutes, right? It's the fact that when everybody's healthy, and everyone's not going to be healthy all year, that's not how it works. When everybody's healthy all year, Chauncey Billups is going to play Matisse Thybulle over the other guys because he trusts him, right? Like it's just going to happen. So is there a world in which, I don't think Matisse Thybulle has a lot of standalone value. The Blazers basically traded 2 second-round picks to get him. I would assume that when they trade him away, they'll get 2 second-round picks for their troubles in return. Something like that. Matisse is a weird player. Maybe some team talks themselves into him, but he's unique. There's nobody like him in a lot of different ways. I don't think there's many skateboarders in the NBA.
My man wears the same pair of Vans every day.
Yeah, he wears Chuck Taylors and destroys them and buys a new pair of Chuck Taylors because he's riding the skateboard. But is there a world in which they try to move Matisse because he actually is part of the logjam in a way that other guys aren't? Do you think? I mean, not that they would prioritize it. But
no, yeah. and I don't think, number one, they would try to send him to basketball purgatory. I think that there's a healthy level of respect for Matisse and organizationally, and Matisse's agent is Aaron Goodwin, and let's keep their guns down. Let's make sure everybody's amenable.
Hey, Aaron Goodwin doesn't have that. Aaron Goodwin doesn't have that many clients left. He doesn't have that many clients left.
Hey, he got DeMar paid.
Yeah. So is it just 4 guys? Gary Payton, Dame, DeMar, and Matisse?
I think so. There might be one other young guy I'm forgetting.
They've already dealt with the entire Goodwin catalog. They're good, baby. They can send him to hell.
But also they love Tease, like as a dude.
Yeah.
As I understand it, Dallas was pretty strongly interested in Tease before going with the trade they ultimately did with Klay Thompson. I had heard that Josh Green would be the piece that would have returned to Portland there, which when you think about it, like Aussie athlete that can't shoot, I'm like, okay. Like
Josh Green's a better passer, but a worse defender. So
yeah, but you're swapping Aussie athletes that can't shoot. Like it's your particular stylings that don't, necessarily aren't consistent in that vein. But I think again, timelines would have made sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they would just like dump Matisse for nothing. No. But why I mention it is because like I don't think he has a super great trade value in and of himself.
He's the guy that goes in a 3-team deal.
Right, right. Like, it's him or Jabari Walker. Yeah, right, yeah. Exactly. At the deadline, I think he's the guy that, veteran teams will come calling about, besides Jeremy. Maybe. I don't know if Matisse Thybulle can play in the playoffs.
It's an interesting thought because of the shooting. But if he has that season again where he gets back to shooting like 30,
if he has the reverse of last year, where it was like he was killing it until the calendar flipped, and then he just forgot about to shoot. February. He just forgot how to shoot. And then he stopped shooting because he was shooting bricks. But if he just flips that and he sucks in November, but then he turns it on in February, that changes that it'll feel a lot different because he was killing it at the beginning of the year.
The old 3-point shooting catfish.
Yeah, he was killing it to begin the year. I do think NBA teams have access to game logs similar to me.
I'd be surprised.
You'd be able to figure it out.
Some of the opinions I hear about players from people who work in front offices from time to time, I wonder if they have access to game logs.
Yeah, people form strong opinions. I'll put it like that. They form strong opinions. I'll say it like that. Danny, would you be willing to come back for another show and we'll play a little game?
Oh, I love games. Give me.
Let's do it. On Friday, Danny will be back. It's Marang week. Join us there in Friday's program. Dear listeners, tell your friends about the show. Available on all platforms for free, never behind a paywall. You just got to listen to a couple ads and then a whole bunch of fun stuff in the middle. This is what we do 3 days a week, all August long and into September. We'll be back for Friday's show with more Danny and more fun. And we're going to play a game. Join us there, won't ya? I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.